In a quiet town nestled between lush green hills, there lived a curious fox named Felix, who was known for his insatiable love for adventure. Felix spent his days dreaming about the world beyond the hills, determined to see it all, no matter how far he had to go. One morning, he packed a small sack with some berries and set off on a journey that would change his life forever. As he wandered through a dense forest, Felix met an eccentric owl named Oliver, who claimed to have seen the entire world. "I can show you the way to the most beautiful places," Oliver said with a wise gleam in his eye. Felix, eager and excited, followed the owl deeper into the forest, where he encountered a sparkling river that reflected the entire sky. "This is the River of Reflection," said Oliver, "a place where you can see your dreams as clearly as the stars above." Felix stared at the water, mesmerized, and for the first time, saw himself not just as a fox, but as a traveler of the world. Determined to see more, Felix continued on, with Oliver flying above, guiding him toward the unknown. They soon reached a vast meadow, where the grass waved like ocean waves, and Felix couldn't help but run through it with joy. "Life is about movement," Oliver hooted. "Never stop running toward what excites you." As they journeyed onward, Felix and Oliver stumbled upon a group of laughing tourists who were hiking up a mountain. Curious, Felix approached them, wondering what humans found so special about the peak they were climbing. The tourists smiled and offered Felix a spot in their group, and together they climbed higher and higher. At the summit, Felix stood in awe as the world unfolded before him. Mountains, rivers, forests, and towns stretched out as far as his eyes could see. "This," Felix whispered to himself, "is what freedom feels like." The view gave him a new sense of purpose. It was no longer about seeing the world, but about understanding it. As the sun set, painting the sky in vibrant hues of orange and purple, the tourists shared stories of their travels, each one more inspiring than the last. Felix listened intently, realizing that each journey, no matter how far, was a story waiting to be told. Motivated by their tales, Felix decided that he would not only see the world but also help others find their own adventures. The next day, Felix and Oliver continued their journey, walking through a quaint village where the streets smelled of fresh bread and flowers. In the center of the village, a group of children was playing a game of hide and seek, and Felix couldn't resist joining them. He quickly became the master of hiding, using his keen fox senses to find the perfect spots. Laughter filled the air, and for a moment, Felix forgot all about his travels, lost in the pure joy of play. As the game ended, an old woman approached Felix and handed him a small, intricately carved wooden box. "This is for you, traveler," she said mysteriously, before disappearing into the crowd. Felix opened the box and found a tiny compass inside, its needle pointing not north, but toward the unknown. "Looks like we're headed somewhere special," Oliver remarked as he glanced at the compass. Intrigued, Felix let the compass guide them, and soon they found themselves standing at the edge of a vast desert. The desert was unlike anything Felix had ever seen. Golden sands stretched for miles, and the heat shimmered in the distance like a mirage. "This is where many travelers turn back," said Oliver, "but my friend, we move forward." Despite the scorching sun, Felix pressed on, his determination burning brighter than the desert heat. Along the way, they encountered a band of nomads who invited Felix to share their fire and listen to their stories. The nomads spoke of far-off lands and forgotten treasures, but what struck Felix most was their unwavering hope, despite living in such a harsh environment. "It's not where you are," one of the nomads said, "it's where you're going that matters." Inspired, Felix realized that the desert, like life, was full of challenges, but it was how you faced them that defined you. After days of crossing the desert, Felix and Oliver finally reached an oasis, where palm trees swayed and the water sparkled like diamonds. "We've earned this rest," Oliver said with a satisfied sigh, and Felix couldn't agree more. As they relaxed by the water, Felix thought about how far he had come and how much more there was to see. But it wasn't just the places that mattered, it was the people, the experiences, the lessons he had learned along the way. With renewed energy, Felix set off again, the compass still guiding him toward places unknown. They crossed rivers, climbed mountains, and even sailed across a crystal clear sea, each new location more stunning than the last. One evening, while camping under a canopy of stars, Felix asked Oliver, "Do you think I'll ever see it all?" "Perhaps not," Oliver replied, "but that's the beauty of it. There's always more to discover." The next morning, they found themselves in a bustling city, where towering buildings reached for the sky and the streets buzzed with life. Felix marveled at the diversity of people, each one hurrying off to their own destinations, living their own adventures. He wandered through the city, soaking in the sights, the sounds, and the energy that seemed to pulse through the air. Felix found himself at a museum, where ancient artifacts told stories of past travelers who had explored the world long before him. One exhibit featured a map of the world, marked with the journeys of explorers who had dared to venture into the unknown. Felix smiled, realizing that he was now one of those explorers, writing his own story on the map of life. As he left the museum, Felix spotted a group of street performers, and with a mischievous grin, he joined their act. He danced, twirled, and even juggled a few apples, much to the delight of the crowd that gathered around him. The city was full of surprises, and Felix embraced each one with open arms, knowing that every moment was part of his extraordinary journey. Late that night, as he lay on a rooftop, staring up at the stars, Felix thought about how far he had come and how much more there was to see. "The world is vast," he whispered to himself, "and I am but a small part of it." Yet, despite his smallness, Felix felt a deep connection to the world, as if every place he had visited was now a part of him. The next morning, Felix and Oliver left the city, following the compass once again toward new horizons. They walked through valleys, crossed more rivers, and even met a group of mountaineers who shared stories of courage and resilience. Felix learned that no matter how high the mountain, it could always be climbed with enough determination and heart. Their journey took them to a quiet beach, where the ocean stretched endlessly before them, waves crashing softly against the shore. As they stood there, Felix felt a sense of peace wash over him, as if the ocean was welcoming him home after a long voyage. "This is where we rest," Oliver said, settling down on the sand. Felix nodded, feeling content but also aware that this was not the end of his journey. He knew that the world was full of more wonders, more challenges, and more stories waiting to be discovered. As the sun set over the ocean, casting a golden glow across the sky, Felix made a promise to himself. No matter how far he traveled, no matter where life took him, he would never stop exploring, never stop seeking out the unknown. Because it wasn't just about the places he visited, it was about the people he met, the lessons he learned, and the joy of the journey itself. With that thought in mind, Felix closed his eyes, dreaming of the adventures still to come. Oliver, perched beside him, whispered, "Tomorrow is a new day, and the world is waiting." And as the stars twinkled above, Felix smiled, knowing that his journey had only just begun. The next day, Felix woke up with excitement in his heart, eager to discover the next place the compass would lead him. As they wandered along the coast, they stumbled upon a small village where the locals lived in harmony with the sea. The villagers welcomed Felix and Oliver with open arms, sharing tales of fishermen who had sailed across the oceans to distant lands. Inspired by their courage, Felix decided that he too would one day sail across the vast waters, exploring lands beyond his imagination. For now, though, he was content to enjoy the peace of the village, where the pace of life was slow and the people were kind. Felix spent his days helping the fishermen, learning the ways of the sea and the secrets it held. Every evening, as the sun set over the ocean, Felix sat on the beach, watching the horizon and dreaming of what lay beyond it. The sea, with all its mysteries, called to him like a siren, and Felix knew that his journey was far from over. One day, as he stood at the edge of the water, a fisherman approached him with a weathered map in hand. "This map," the fisherman said, "leads to an island that no one has ever returned from. Are you brave enough to go?" Felix, ever the adventurer, smiled and nodded, his heart racing with excitement at the thought of the unknown. The next morning, with the map in one paw and the compass in the other, Felix set sail on a small boat, Oliver perched on the mast. The journey across the sea was long and treacherous, with storms and waves threatening to sink them at every turn. But Felix was determined, his eyes fixed on the horizon, his spirit unshaken by the challenges that lay before him. After days at sea, they finally reached the mysterious island, its shores lined with towering cliffs and thick jungles. Felix and Oliver disembarked, ready to explore the island's secrets and uncover whatever treasures it held. The island was unlike anything Felix had ever seen, with strange plants and creatures that seemed to belong to another world. As they ventured deeper into the jungle, they discovered ancient ruins, their walls covered in carvings of forgotten stories. Felix felt a strange connection to the place, as if he had been there before, in another life. "This island," Oliver said, "is a place of great mystery. Many have come here seeking answers, but few have found them." Felix, undeterred, continued exploring the island, determined to unlock its secrets. Along the way, they encountered a group of explorers who had been stranded on the island for years, unable to find a way off. Felix, with his unyielding optimism, encouraged them not to give up, reminding them that every challenge could be overcome with perseverance. Together, they worked to build a new boat, using the resources of the island to create something that could withstand the treacherous sea. After months of hard work, the boat was finally ready, and Felix, Oliver, and the explorers set sail once again. The journey back was just as perilous as the one to the island, but Felix never lost hope, his eyes always on the horizon. At long last, they reached the mainland, where they were greeted as heroes, their story becoming the stuff of legend. Felix, now a seasoned traveler, knew that his journey was far from over. There were still more places to see, more people to meet, and more stories to tell. And so, with the compass still in his paw and the world before him, Felix set off once again, ready for whatever adventures lay ahead. For Felix, the world was not just a place to explore, it was a story, and he was determined to write every chapter with courage, curiosity, and an open heart.